Hello, ScalaCon. I hope that you can hear me well and you can see my slides. So let's start. I'm Krzysztof Romanowski. I'm the head of Scala at Virtus Lab. And what means I'm the head of Scala? It's basically I'm running the commercial projects that are using Scala, making sure that teams are happy, clients and everything. But I'm also like building a strategy and maintaining the open source part of that. And that's quite substantial because Virtus Lab, we are the part of the core Scala team. Is actually people from our team that do the releases quite recently and driving and maintaining Scala 3. It's not ends there. We're also working on Scala ecosystem and mainly metals and Scala CLI. Those are like these two main things that we care and maintain and drive forward. But there is also like much more and small initiatives that we also include in the mix. Like quite recently, we take over maintenance of the public instance of the Scala Steward. So in short, we try to do everything we can to actually keep the ecosystem afloat. And with that, I have two shameless plugins to include at the very beginning. I will promise I will make it short. So the first one is the migration support and the help that we want to give to the community, to the people, and especially to the companies that want to work on Scala 3 migration. We were working with the open source libraries to onboard ecosystem, but there is like for the community to really move on to Scala 3, we really need also the commercial projects, the companies that to move on to Scala 3. And for that, we are volunteer to actually help the team, your teams, your projects to migrate to Scala 3. Where we are doing that, we are doing it mostly for free. So it's not about money, but we need this adoption for Scala 3 to move forward. And since we really care about Scala 3, that is why we want to help the community to move on. And if you want to a tweet about the link, but also drop us an email, send me a DM on Twitter, whatever ways, reach out if you really want to work with us, if you want our help to migrate from Scala 2 to Scala 3. Oh, yeah. And the second shapeless plug is the developer survey. So together with Scala Center, we want to throw the developer survey for Scala for this year. There is a QR code that you can scan. Probably Martin showed it yesterday, but some people might have missed it. There is a link. So please tell us what you are using Scala for, what are the libraries that you care, tools, IDs, you name it. Most there's, I think, only 3 or 4 questions that are mandatory. So if there's something seems like too much to answer, just skip the question. What we really want to have, what we really want to know is what kind of version of Scala do you use? This is the kind of core thing that we really need to know. And I don't know how much years of experience and how do you want to change Scala? Because there is a question like this as well there. And I actually take a look at the results, and this meme actually it's still relevant because most people that voted so far, at least I checked it in the morning, said that the compilation speed is the thing that they want to change mostly. So if you think there are other, you really care for tooling or stability of linkers, whatever, just vote so we hear your voice, so we can move the ecosystem, move the libraries, move the Scala itself into the place where it should be. And I think that's the end of the shameless plug. So let's talk about batteries, shall we? And when I was preparing for this talk, I sort of assumed that batteries included is kind of a solid term. There's tons of articles and everything about batteries included because I knew it from, forever, especially around programming. Then you realize it's not so much. So most people probably read Python and they just, got the batteries included in their mind and they keep using it. So I start thinking, what do I think about batteries included? What means that batteries is included in something? And then you're like, oh, that's the thing that, where it's really important. This handheld drills or any kind of devices that, drill wood, whatever, and they come with batteries. And since batteries are still expensive, some producers actually sell as, only a few, so you have 3 batteries, and then you have 10 tools that can use it. So in that scope, it's actually quite important if you buy one with batteries included or not, because you just want to, renovate an apartment, whatever, and you just got this one online, and then you only got the drill, you don't get a battery, so you cannot use it. And that's where this battery included means there. And this actually, and it's something clicked in my head, oh, that's actually quite a good analogy to what we have, what we can spoke about we can analyze in terms of the Scala ecosystem. And so I was thinking, okay, that's probably like, when I want to drill a hole in my wall to actually hang a picture or whatever, that's probably is the tool I want to use. That's the kind of most handy tool. But there are others. So as you can see here, like, we're starting from really old tools, like this is actually one from Mary Rose, a ship that was like found on the bottom of the ocean from like, I think 16th or 15th century, up to this kind of more like, Industrial Revolution one, into this kind of court one, very powerful thing. And there is this battery included one. So where Scala as its ecosystem sits in that scope. And I realized we are not yet on this battery included level. It's not like I can just take a Scala, whatever, basic stuff, and do this simple script, whatever. I can try with Ammonite, I can combine libraries, but isn't it something like, as on this picture here, I need to like, plug a cord, find the extension, know how to use it, like, fear that I will be like electrocuted underway. With the battery included way, just grab one, press the button, and it spins. It's all I want. And even if you look at the kind of what I get when I install Scala at this very moment, I get a feeling that we are on this handheld one. Basically, all I can run REPL, I can compile stuff, but all I need to do is like, okay, if I have no dependencies, that would be fine. So probably if I have to drill one small hole in a wooden thing, that also would work. But if I need to do more, and I don't know, I need a special bit, that's where the things are getting problematic. And you can apply dependencies, but then you need to use a build tool. And build tools in Scala are really powerful. Like, you can do a lot, especially with SBT or MIL, but they are sort of not that easy to apply with, the opinion that Martin shared yesterday, that, when you show Scala to a newcomer and without any knowledge, that he or she will just pick it and like move on. But there is an SBT and, simple stuff, just run this and will compile, all is fine. But then add a dependency to SBT, it sounds easy, but it's actually, challenging for a newcomer. So, or like, get this kind of strange message, or, oh, do I need to run a console, whatever. That's sort of where I think we are not yet in this kind of, just pick and use and it just works. So the first thing I want to talk about is exactly like how we can get from this kind of, when install Scala with the script that cannot resolve dependency, can only like run simple reps and compile simple things and requires me to provide files, into this kind of very modern, powerful battery included thing as this codeless drill. So for that, we especially created over a year ago, when the project started, Scala CLI. It was like sort of made public last year. Now it's more and more public. And we designed the tool especially to conquer that, because we realized, like, when we start analyzing the problems, like sort of last year, I was speaking about this on the last ScalaCon, about like what are the sources of friction, what actually cause developers to don't like working with Scala or not picking up Scala, not being able to start quickly, easy to install and move on, was one of the main things. And the Scala CLI is the answer that we want to actually bring to cover that, to make Scala development scalable, as the name suggests, from the very beginning. So from process of actually writing the first few lines in the code, after having a project multi-module library or like production service written, like that we want to deploy and make money of, there should be sort of a smooth path. And before we had a Scala CLI, there was like Ammonite, there was like, you can have single module SBT builds, but they were not perfect. Actually, the transition was not smooth and it was not as good as we wanted. And Scala CLI is precisely the design to actually fill that role. So maybe now it's time for a small demo. So let me show you really quick what Scala CLI can do. I mean, I will not go into much of the details now. I just want to tease a bit about like what Scala CLI could do, because later on the ScalaCon there will be a presentation from Alex Archambault that will actually go into more details, show you the really cool stuff. I just want to show you, like, what are the bits and pieces that you can actually plug into your code. So first one, like, let's start. I hope that you can see my screen now. So what you can is like when you just start Scala CLI, I will not go into installation because I hope it's really easy because we offer multiple ways to install Scala CLI. When you just start Scala CLI, you exactly as you expect with Scala, it just starts rep, and you can write some simple stuff there. And as you can see, we don't need to provide any kind of configuration. In Scala CLI, this is another problem. I will touch that later as well. But for now, it's like Scala was really like default, light on the default. And Scala CLI will try to default to as many things as possible. So you can just start Scala CLI not specifying Scala or not specifying Java, not installing Scala or Java. It's just, Scala CLI just works. And of course, I can just change it quite quick because I can say, okay, I really want to use Scala 2 in such case. So what we will have? We will have a Scala 2 13.8. And this is the kind of mantra that we have in Scala CLI. So basically try to make things as easy and as default as it can be. But yeah, starting a rep is not the big thing. Like, we all have a rep. Old Scala also can start a rep. So so what else we can do with it? So let's say that we want to write a simple application, like, just like ignore this thing on the top. This is a Scala script. And what do we do? Just do a simple echo. So with Scala CLI, it's like, it's really easy to try it. So basically what we really need to do is, and we can just write echo. And that's all. It will run and there is nothing printed because we do not provide any output. We use this dash convention that's used by many command line tools, and we have our echo ready. But just compiling is not. Let's get into something that current Scala or Scala C cannot do. So I just really want to make it fast. So I just want to really use Scala native. Scala native is trendy now. There's a lot of development in that area, so I hope it will like a future that we can explore much more. So with Scala CLI, with native, it's just a matter of adding dash native, and I have the same thing. I'm sort of cheating here because the thing that we're running is kind of precompiled. So hopefully I will be able to show you like how much time does this actually do the Scala native thing. But yeah, but probably that's not really when you want to go, because as running a Scala CLI when you want to have an application is not perfect. But for that, we also like to add the support for the shebang script. So as you see here, and in the shebang you can provide options like here for native. And what I can do is basically I can just make it executable. I did it before, and now I can just run echo and let's say something, and this just works, as you can see. And what is cool, it's really fast there with the native. It's not as fast as it can be. I will show you how fast it can be. Maybe let me just fix up this ugly warning for now. And so yeah, compiling. So to show you something else. And as you can see, there is an output. Maybe let's make it a bit starting from the top. And when I run it again, there is some overhead, but I do not compile stuff. So with Scala CLI, you can easily just write the scripts, compile it once, and then use it. Even for a native, it's not as fast as it can be. We can optimize it better, but we can get better. Actually, we can. And now we go to the next thing with Scala CLI. We can actually package stuff. So like, let's package something into native. And again, you don't need to do anything, and then you get native executables that you can just try, and it's like super fast. So yeah, for packaging, there's multiple options. You can even create a Docker image or even a package that can be installed on Debian. That's more advanced and probably not as stable stuff. So still think of them as experimental, but that's not end. So let's say that I mentioned the libraries. Yeah, in Scala CLI, accessing libraries is super easy. What we have here is like we can either use this in the command line. So let me show you that really quick. For now, let's just comment it out and let's do it. Okay, just comment this. So in Scala CLI, you need to provide options first. So then you just add a tab, just open what you got, and then just start this. As you can see, it's all that you need to do, and it just works in principle. But providing all of the configuration command line might be cumbersome. But in Scala CLI, all of the things that you could reasonably configure in command line, so which pretty much all of the stuff you can configure in command line. So there is like, and command line take precedence over the what we have in using directive. So kind of configuration built into the file in the special syntax using a special kind of commands. Because now I don't need to add this step stuff. I can just remove it really quick and just run it, and it will work as well. It even like incrementally compiled. But there is also another thing. I can say, okay, I just want to override dependency, and as you can see, the command line take precedence even if the dependency does not exist. And Scala CLI is also like really allows you to batch and connect multiple stuff. Like it's really flexible in a way, because I can start with like even something like I can just pipe stuff to the Scala CLI. I don't know how much you can see, and then I can just run each through Scala CLI, and it will just work. But that's not all, because for example, I can have the there is like there is a piece of code over the internet I would just want to run. So what I can do here, as you can see, there is nothing. There is just, this is a normal command. Do not it doesn't provide anything into the scope. I can just run Scala CLI and some, and I can just provide as an input, let's say a gist that I created earlier. And there is no numbers. Like there is some problem with the code, just ignore those, but it works. And you might ask, okay, let's explore that. And this is actually where when I can do it, just like just add the stats rep with a command, and you can see that I just started rep and provided gist, and it starts a console. And let's see what is in numbers. It's just a set of numbers like that I can just access over the internet without any fuss. So there is much more. I don't want to get into this. Just want to give you a bit of a taste what Scala CLI can do. We provide stuff that you can also use on the CIs, like Docker images that you can apply, GitHub Actions. And Scala CLI at this very stage aim for like 4 main or 5 main things, like 4 are supported. So basically scripting, what I showed a bit, like experimenting and prototyping, for learning Scala, and having a meaningful and small projects that you can package into the Docker container and maybe deploy as a serverless Lambda or whatever. So that's where we have a Scala CLI, and we are working on making Scala CLI a Scala command. So basically, there's a zip open that I'm working on. I will update it pretty much just after ScalaCon, I hope. We're working to make sure that we are aligned with the previous command as much as we can have. So basically, when the zip decide that we will switch and use Scala CLI to implement Scala command, because this is what the zip is about, then we will be like the existing users of Scala command will not broke, or like if they break, like if their code breaks or something, there will be like meaningful errors, because there is some things that makes a little sense that we have right now in the Scala command, and the options that are supported is like the list is really huge, and probably 1/3 or half or even more options make no sense. Nobody uses those options, and there we don't all like. Why the zip, and why I was not saying that, they're telling you that we want to turn Scala CLI into Scala command, because this is not precisely what we want to do. This is not like, technically it might be true, but we want to limit the options that are supported in the Scala command. And you might say, oh, why? Like I later like the packaging that you showed us earlier. Why do I need to? Why do we want to limit that? Because like we don't propose to include packaging in the original zip. And the thing is that we want to keep the list small initially, because whatever gets into the Scala commands, this is something that we commit to support. And before we are sure that we want to support something long run, we would like to know that this is really needed, that people will enjoy it, use it, and it's stable, and and we can support it in the long run. So initially, I think we started with the basic stuff like running, compiling, testing, formatting. I haven't shown formatting, but we also built in Scala FMT, and like cleaning the results so the incremental compilation gets clean, and a few other small bits. And advanced stuff like packaging on more specified running options will not be included initially. Our plan is like when we get the initial stuff done, there's a lot of work ahead of us if the zip gets accepted, because we need to figure out how to properly address installation. And this will get into the Scala, and then if people would like to, actually we enable more, let's say, packaging into the Scala command. So for that, probably we'll have another zips. And how will it work under the hood? For now, the model that we are aiming for is that we have like one Scala CLI code base, and there is this switch whether it is full, like restricted or not. So, and we detect that for now based on the fact what is the name of the binary that runs Scala CLI. So if you install Scala CLI as Scala, you will get limited set of command. If you install this as Scala CLI, you will get all of those. And like, I'm not sure if this kind of exactly this mechanism will be like used in the last one, because we might produce two different binaries based on the same code base. We will see. But we want to keep this duality. So we have this kind of stable and restricted Scala, and this, open-ended, more experimental Scala CLI, more powerful, because we really want to experiment. And I will show you more like what are the kind of areas of experimentation that we might address in this very talk. If you would like to give us some updates, just please comment on the SIP. There was like some maybe like show us the support that you really want to have it quickly or not, or maybe this is a completely bad idea. Because the SIP for now restrained for voting, because I still need to clarify, like we still need to clarify a few things in the proposal, so there is still time. And I mentioned that you can influence Scala CLI. There is one more way that you can influence Scala CLI at our booth at the section of the hopping. So when after this presentation or after when you have some time and break, we have a poll, and because we are looking for this kind of default name of the file where all the using directives should be. When we introduce using directives, I don't want to go really deeply into the semantic of using directives. It's like I would love to go, but it's not the talk to do this. But we are looking for this kind of a file name that we suggest. Okay, the project starts here. It's not mandatory; it's just a naming convention. But we really want to pick one. So as you can see, I'm like really keen of the project at Scala, but there are others. So please let us know what you would like to see and where would you like to put all of the using directives from your project. So I hope I convinced you that from the battery included part, the Scala CLI, the tooling one, is looking good, and hopefully we will be able to make it a Scala. So it counts as vanilla Scala. For now, it sort of counts as vanilla Scala. And then with that as a Scala, we'll be able to, on the tooling side, we'll be good to go, and you can explore and be productive. So let's look, because that's not the end of the story. It's like I'm halfway through my talk. Probably should I step here? Probably not. But there was mentioned, the Python was mentioned, and Python was exactly the source of battery included into kind of software and IT world. And in their motto, the Python needs to be battery included. So one picks a Python and actually use it and have all the tools they want to work for the project. And by tools, they mean one thing. They mean libraries. And so in Scala world, what kind of libraries? So we actually, when we was working on this friction project I mentioned from last year, we actually go through this ecosystem. So we look at Python, we look at C++, because it goes the reputation of being a really good one. We look at Go, which like a lot of people just know, I am going to Go because everything is good there. And this is the kind of the part of the kind of analysis that we use. What are the things that what kind of the fields and that are building or provided for given ecosystems? As you can see, C++ with Boost provides surprisingly a lot of there. But if you look at Python and Go, there is a tons of the stuff that are actually bring with standard library. And so developers there, when I just, I'm writing a Python script and I just want to parse a JSON, I just have a JSON. I just need to import it and it's there and I can use it. Same with Go. And there's a lot of things like Python have really Go. The standard libraries are like really huge and vast, if I'm even too vast, but I'm not here to judge. So from the Scala side, what we do when we need to parse a bit of a JSON right now. So what you do? You actually will need to pick a JSON library. And this is the kind of like few years back, there was really kind of everybody was, trying to find what is the best JSON libraries. And we are still there. We have amazing JSON libraries, but there is like many of them. So when I want to parse in my simple script, let's say I have a Scala CLI installed, but I still need to actually have, need to put what I need to get in this dependency directive, or what I need to put in the command line to actually access the JSON library to parse it. And how often do you do that? Like probably once a month, maybe. So you don't know it by heart because it makes no sense. I mean, let's pick one. Let's say there is this play framework here. So I need to know what kind of, should I type just play framework that play JSON and put a version, one of like 1x or whatever? No, it's much more complicated. I just need to know and probably need to click and copy and so forth. And like I need to pick, I need to know how to apply it. I don't need to make a mistake. That's not easy. And not many people actually know Scala decks, even though how amazing it is actually to find libraries. So that's actually a problem especially for newcomers, and also a problem because when I have Python installed in my machine and I have to just parse this 5 JSON and find these 5 fields and add them together and send a HTTP request with the results somewhere. I will go for Python because for Scala I need to actually remember what kind of client, what is the way to use it, do I need the monads to do it as well? Yeah, and you can see where it's going. So that is what Martin actually tested last year. And that's the kind of, I'm really excited that we are at the stage that we can start speaking publicly about it. Because for some time, we are together with Scala Center and the PFL are working on the project that we call Scala Toolkit. So that project precisely aims to start solving the problem because it is a process. It's not like it's already there, we'll ship it tomorrow and everything is solved. This is actually a surprisingly hard process to get it, but we start the process and we finally can share about it. So welcome to Scala Toolkit. So first, before I go, what Scala Toolkit is, I need to tell you what Scala Toolkit is not, because it's really important. Because probably all of you now think, okay, we'll just create new JSON library. No, that's precisely what we don't want to do. We do not want to add things to standard library like Python or Go, and we don't want to create new libraries or fork existing ones. We also do not aim to create the ultimate JSON library, the one that will so the other will be obsolete from the very beginning. There are different ways how we can parse JSON. There are different requirements, and we do not aim to have one JSON library to rule them all. We also do not want here, when we're building the toolkit, to force any kind of advanced knowledge or skills. So I'm really sorry for all people that love category theory in the toolkit libraries. Probably you will not see many monads. There might be some monads, but not in the APIs that we want to promote. And what are the goals of the toolkit? So first, we just want to create a curated, so the ones that we handpicked set of composable libraries. We want to create libraries that are good enough for non-mission critical uses. It is actually, let me explain what I mean by that. Those libraries should be production ready. You should use it on the production. But if your application really depends on how fast you parse JSON, or you really need this kind of super precise errors and recovering quickly and not actually falling into if JSON is deep that your stack will not blow up, this is not the kind of criteria that we are looking for in the libraries. We want a library. So let's say you have a JSON library, you want to use it on the kind of standard local applications. And let's say that your application is streaming stuff, but you have a configuration in JSON in 1 or 3 files. That's a completely valid production use case for toolkit libraries. We want that our libraries are easy accessible. So all this mess I spoke about finding and picking stuff. We also want that the libraries are beginner friendly. So the APIs are easy to explore. And at best, if you have an IDE and know how to use it, so basically you're able to press Control Space, the library should actually be add here, account completion, and it works. Probably will not get there very quickly, but those are these kind of goals that we want to achieve with a toolkit. Then we want to create a shared and centralized tutorials and documentation base for all these libraries. So there's so people going to the Scala lang page and they get the tutorial. So when somebody wants to learn Scala, goes for the basics and then have, how to use JSON. That's click, okay, I know how to do it. So we don't want to actually, take over all the tutorials and APIs and, the documentation from these libraries, but we just want to create and centralize some of the tutorials at least, because we also do not we do not need to cover those tutorials, do not need to cover everything for the given libraries. We really want to focus on this main path. And so yeah, so those hopefully will not conflict. And as you can see, there's many things that we still don't know what is the best way to do it. But we strongly believe that this move is needed, that we need this curated list for libraries solving the most basic stuff at hand. Then we also want those libraries to be stable. So follow MIMA and be really backward compatible. So people will not go there, even if they're like, update stuff, their code will not break. And we also really would like to have, that's kind of less important than the others, that those libraries are multi-platform. As I mentioned, Scala native is picking the speed, Scala JS already there and being used. So we want that libraries that we want to do, if they make sense. For example, if you want to integrate file system, the JS probably makes no sense. So the multi-platform support is there. And yeah, as I mentioned, this is a process. So we want to start building up, there is a multiple things that we still don't know. What is kind of the best way to centralize documentation? What actually make the dependency accessible? And for that, we actually set up a few milestones. And in the first one, we decided that we want to challenge all these kind of hard problems, like how to compose those stuff, and pick really small set of libraries, but set that will be meaningful and will benefit our ecosystem from the very beginning. And for those, we actually start with 4 categories, 4 things that we want to provide. And those are like, you are not surprised probably by my talk now. JSON, it's HTTP client that actually Martin showed yesterday. There is integration with OS, so working with files and basic stuff for scripting. And the last one is kind of default small testing framework. And you probably all want to know what are the libraries that will go into first batch. And before I go to that, I just want to make a disclaimer. I'm not going to explain why given library was picked. Just after my talk, there is Szymon Rodziewicz will be giving a lightning talk about this kind of what are the criteria, how we decide, how we picked the libraries to fill those categories. So go to our booth, like a visual booth, and listen to Szymon talk because he will cover that. I hope I did the time zones right. It's basically just after my talk. And now is the time to actually show you. So the libraries that we aim to add to the toolkit in the first milestone are upickle for JSON, HTTP for HTTP, OSLib for accessing the OS stuff, and for testing it's munit. We strongly believe that this is a good choice, that those libraries are accessible, easy enough, beginner friendly, and yet stable and battle tested. But then we come to the question about the accessibility. And Martin showed this slide yesterday. I mean, how we can get toolkit into our application. And that sort of, for me, is the lowest hanging fruit, like really basic stuff. So instead of adding, dependency as it is, you just add toolkit and we'll bring all dependencies. Or maybe you can make a variation that is like you add using toolkit.http or something, and you will get dependencies there. So this basic approach eliminates all the needs to actually know what is the version, how to apply it. We can have a default version. We have many defaults in the Scala CLI if you want to use in the Scala CLI. Because stuff I will be showing here is Scala CLI based. I think this approach can be also extended to other build tools because that's another thing that needs to be done. So with toolkit there is still like imports, and those imports might not be really good in terms of this is not something that can just came up of my mind. So, but this is the problem that is hard to solve actually, how to make it work for not requiring any knowledge, not Googling, but just being able to flow and do stuff on the way. And here is actually when I want to go into the side of a future, because all the things I showed up to this point and what I said were either there in the Scala CLI or whatever, or were actually decided and planned and move on. So, but now I just want to go into the future. In terms, this is not the future that is being settled. This is kind of my vision of the future. And this is the part of the talk when I just want to start discussing how we can implement those stuff. So do not quote me here. I mean, you can quote me, but do not put me like, demands that this is the way how we're going to implement. Because we are still not sure. Like even today, when I was like showing my colleagues in the room the slides and what I would do, we actually have an hour-long discussion about if this is a really good approach. So from this point on, I really want to get into the discussion with all of you, the comments of Twitter, whatever you will reach me, if this is really the approach that we should take. And now let's go to another demo. So let's move to the different code, because I just want to show you something new. And here I will not using Scala CLI. I will using a tool that I call Scala Soon, which is basically my custom version of Scala CLI that I just want to hack over to show you how things might work. So what do you want to do here? We just want to write something really simple. We just want to write a simple application that will just display the, let's say we are like really basic stuff, the name of the path, the full path to the current, the name of the current directory. Like maybe we'll make it really simple. So let's call ls for ls current, and we want to print line something. And now, like, how we can get the current directory name? We can import file and do Java IO or Neo, but we can do it with Scala native as well, but it's not really good one. I mean, we really want to do better. So we really want to probably use what I just mentioned. So we really want to use OS sleep as a part of a toolkit to actually do that job. And normally we can just, we can just type here to just enable the toolkit and have imports from the OS lib, which is actually surprisingly easy because it's just OS. So that would be fine. But I don't think this is kind of the best way to access it. So what if we can do something like this? Let's say that all of the parts of the import, like we have living in the toolkit package, not the for library, but the core stuff to access it. So let's just import. And now we, let's say, can access the OS with the name. I hope I make it right. And let's try. And as you can see, oh yeah, there is last. Yeah, I don't remember. But as you can see with Scala 3, we are actually, this is quite good because I don't know the library, but it got me there. And yes, we are right. We just implemented it. So you might ask yourself, like, how does it work really? Like, why? Yeah, so what I just actually, the approach I got for accessibility is that in Scala CLI, maybe we can just, based on this imports like this, add dependencies to the project. And with that, then we have a control and importing it and using prefixes. I mean, this is the actually where OS really inspired me there, because with short words like OS or HTTP, using prefixes for everything is super easy. You get code completions. And then this is something that I can show to the newcomer, and it will look right. It will look hopefully readable. And let's move a bit more. So like I got some kind of code here, but let me show you that on the test. So because for me, I always have a problem with actually figuring it out, what should be how should I define a test suite? And with toolkit, we can also sort it off. Again, I'm just importing toolkit, and then in the test, there is the suite, and I got it, and it just works. And it's not like a magic, because under the hood, metals work with me. You just need to believe me. I probably messed up with my setup. Under the hood is just a normal unit, nothing else. All I did is basically add some kind of, a bit of logic and magic to make sure that the tests, that there is this import test. So is this the right way? I don't know, because I'm not sure how library authors will feel about this, if their libraries are actually sort of shadowed by this toolkit imports. If this is ergonomic enough, I hope so. I could really high hopes for it. And it will require some work, if maybe it will break somebody or something on the way. But basically having this experience is really when I would like Scala Toolkit to be. So I want to get as close to the feel that those stuff are in the std.lib as I could without actually extending Scala lib. And also work on this API, at least this kind of accessible access to APIs, because I don't want to re-implement or shadow test. definition or a suite, which is actually renaming from a fun suite, but actually provide this kind of entry point to the libraries. Hopefully, this is the approach that will be scale. We will be able to do it. And we actually see some of that in works, because when we are like discussing different HTTP libraries, we figure out the HTTP is really amazing library. However, the APIs that are there were not really like, really simple for beginners. And we probably noticed that there such APIs was added to the HTTP, which I'm really grateful for Adam and also from you. So hopefully this approach of sort of like building up this accessible entry points to the libraries is a good one. And because with that, we get at least a partial unified API. And this is something that I think for me is really important. And this is something where, for example, Python standard libraries is being criticized for, that different parts of the standard libraries behave differently. We will have inherently the same problems because those libraries was written with their own ideas, but maybe we can quite cheaply, using some clever Scala code, like export from Scala 3, provide this experience and have this unified approach to libraries. So yeah, that's the Scala CLI part. But I sort of feel that I cheated on you a bit, because all I showed now was things really related to like bordering the meaningful projects. How we can define a meaningful project is like used by more than 2 users. Okay, that's meaningful. And Scala CLI, a spoiler alert for Alex talk from tomorrow, is going to support a simple single module libs. So you can have a library written using just Scala CLI. So that's a meaningful project, you might say. And yes, you're right. But I think the kind of meaningful in that sense, we can take it to that meaningful is a project that actually, is used on production and earns some money in one way or another. And I get the feeling that what I showed here is like, okay, you might say a script that I deploy for like deployment of my application within Scala CLI, which is like really valid use case for Scala CLI, to be honest. Is that, yeah, I agree. But I would really have like, a small application that maybe might earn money written completely using a vanilla Scala. So toolkit as showed you to actually handle JSON. So let's say I get a really clever mechanism to handle JSON. I can build it in a package with Scala CLI, but then in order to actually deploy it somewhere, I need something else. And that's the kind of another area where, as you can see, this image is not really clear. And that's on purpose, because I don't know if, this is my far in the future. This is just, an idea I want to throw at everybody. So should we also, maybe what we need to actually even move forward with vanilla Scala and provide an even better experience is try to integrate an infrastructure as a first-class citizen in the Scala ecosystem. And what do I mean by that? I mean, should we actually, pick a cloud infrastructure and focus on it? Not really, but let's approach it from a kind of different way. So, because what I was showing here was mostly, applicable for this kind of more backend developer, scripting and so forth. But there is another huge kind of area where Scala is being used, and that's data science. And it's really actually, an approach to infrastructure there is really, I think, valuable. Because now, if you want to write the Spark job, you need to have an install plugin, package it. Maybe there is a tool from Databricks that can do it, but it's not really like organic and easy to use. And let me show you how it might actually work. So here I also have the simplest Spark job, so to do something else. And what I can do with that job is with Scala CLI, and actually Scala soon, because you can do it with Scala CLI, but what you can do is you can just actually run it with and as you can see here, what we just doing here, we running a Spark standalone cluster. Standalone job is not a cluster, directly from Scala CLI. There is no fluff, nothing to worry about. Don't need to think. I got a Spark dependencies. If anybody here actually used Spark with SBT and want to create the simple stuff, there's other problems like it needs to be compiled on the dependency. You also need to create this kind of uberjar fudger. Scala CLI takes care of all of that. And I'm not having a running cluster because I realized that I have 5 minutes for a presentation, so I do not run my cluster. But you can also use Spark in this, like you could in the future when we get up the API rights in terms of user experience, not the implementations. You will be able to just write a Spark job as a simple application and run it on the cluster without any fluff. And that's exactly what I mean by making the infrastructure as the first-class citizen. So I can just take my thing and run in the environments I want to work it on. Of course, we will not be able to support all of the environments, but I really believe that there are subset of environments that we can expose, maybe not just by a simple option. There is probably, maybe we need to build another tool on top of that. But I really want to live in the future when with just basic few clicks on basic tools around Scala or just Scala, CLI, let's say, because it probably will never make into the Scala, I can just write, I don't know, 3 serverless Lambdas and connect them on somewhere, or have like 2 microservices deployed with a few bits of Scala code with type safety. And yeah, that's far-looking future among other things. And so to sum it up, I really hope that right now with the 2022 beginning of October, I cannot say that Scala is within batteries included. In 2023, hopefully, when we get Scala CLI to be a Scala with limited features, and have the first instance and the M1 of the toolkit deployed and used, then I would say that Scala CLI is becoming a tool and ecosystem, Scala and Scala CLI, with batteries included. And I really hope that with that approach, with like making simple things simple and do not overcomplicate it, we'll be also able to get further and the plan how we can expand our community is actually let's get simpler. Let's build simpler stuff on simpler things. More exposing, like, not trying to scare our future users, because what's also what is sort of worrying a bit is that a lot of people, I just realized looking at the partial result on the survey, is that a lot of the people that actually voice stuff in the community and have opinions and try to influence everybody else, there are systems developers, and we really want to keep them. But we are missing this voice of all the newcomers, all the people that want to learn Scala, because they are not, like, they're shy, or even they are not in the community, so they cannot influence it. So I think we should build more for those people as well. And that's all for today. So I'm ready to take questions, if there are some questions.
That was awesome. Thank you so much for that talk. And thank you for being here with us today. We have time for a few questions, so let's get into it. So this was from earlier in your talk, so hopefully you remember what this is in reference to. But the question is that using instruction a part of Scala specification?
Not yet. I mean, this is actually being debated as the part of the SIP, whether this is using specification. This is actually a command, so it doesn't affect a code. If you take that code and configure dependencies yourself in SBT, will compile fine. It's just a meta information. Think of this like Scala documentation that is used by a different tool. Should we make it a part of official Scala or not? Probably SIP will need to decide. I actually even opened a pre-SIP for that specific reasons. Previously, we were aiming like not comments, but I don't see why this can be a part of the Scala specification in the future. Especially, I would love that other tools also respect using directives, because there's like using it for a while. I mean, using directive for a while. They're like really handy tool to define your dependencies, compiler options, and stuff like that.
Gotcha. Next question. What kind of dependencies do the Scala CLI require to install? Is it Java, LLVM, or Node.js? Would the toolkit support Windows, OS integration, etc. as well?
Okay, so let's start from the last question. Would toolkit support Windows OS? Yeah, we really want, like, for sure we'll support JVM, and JVM runs all of this kind of stuff. And libraries like OSLib actually are compatible with all the platforms. Hopefully, you will also get, like, the toolkit will be, whenever it makes sense, will be supported by native or JS, and those will support all the platforms. So there's like nothing in the toolkit that we will like, okay, we will not support Windows. like we really want to be as universal as possible. And to the second question is like, what dependency do the Scala CLI require to install? So you don't need to install any dependencies to run Scala CLI, except for Node.js and LLVM that we might change in the future to use with native. That's kind of limitation. It is kind of quite hard to install this just from a tool. But if you stick to JVM, you don't need to install anything. And also, it's not like you need to have all of those dependencies installed to run Scala CLI. If you want to have it, start a REPL and compile for JVM, you don't need to install anything. And Scala CLI under the hood install multiple tools. So for example, the first time you format stuff, we need to get access to Scala FMT. The first time you run Scala CLI, we need to access Bloop and install Bloop because we run Bloop under the hood to actually make compilation fast. So there's more like dependencies like this. For example, like when you run when you want to deal with Spark, we also need to run Spark in the standalone mode. But thanks to Cursor and this like amazing power over managing dependencies, jars, or the libs or programs, it is done under the hood, and you don't need to worry about those.
All right, thank you for explaining that. All right, next question. Is this not just the set of goals for another Scala standard library? The missing parts? Who is the curator and who is responsible for maintaining this bill of materials?
So yeah, sort of you can think about the toolkit as this kind of extended standard library, but extended standard library is not really like, catchy names. That is why the toolkit was picked. Who's the curator? So right now the project is run by joint forces from Scala Center and Virtus Lab compiler team. Hopefully we'll make it more like, transparent and more accessible to the public as well in the future. And who is responsible for maintaining this bill of materials is the same people, so Scala Center and Virtus Lab. And all of the people that, maintains those libraries and want to chip in.
Perfect.
So it's a community effort.
Yeah, awesome. And we have one more question for you, and that is Scala 3 the focus, or will the toolkit be provided for 2 and 3?
I mean, our goal for sure is to support 3, but hopefully we'll be able to support 2 as well. It's like all depends if 2 will be expressible enough to support all the things that we need to do in toolkit. Or toolkit might work slightly differently in those 2. So we really want to have those 2, but we might make a decision. Probably we need to support 2 because most people are using 2.13 now. So yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for taking the time to answer those questions. Thank you for your talk, and I hope you enjoy your time at ScalaCon.
Yes, I enjoyed that. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Fire in retro rock.
Roger, Matt. Ready to eject.